At Direct Service Garage Doors, we are your one-stop shop for all things garage door. From garage door repair and broken spring replacement to new garage doors and openers, we do it all. We're proud to be among the highest-rated local garage door companies in all of Central Arkansas. Our highly trained technicians are available 24 hours a day at no extra cost to you. So if you have an emergency, call us today, 501-244-3667, or visit our website at directserviceoverhead.com. Don't wait days. We'll fix it now.
Let's bring him on. It is the former Arkansas Razorback tight end, Mr. DJ Williams. DJ, how you doing, man?
Doing good, man. How are you?
Doing all right.
Right on. Nice little day. Feels good out,
Not too bad.
Not bad at all.
Not too bad. So you were the very first Mackey Award recipient for the Razorbacks.
I was.
And that happened under the guy we're going to play this weekend, Bobby Petrino. Can you, well, first off, thank you so much for taking time out of your morning to be here with us.
Yeah.
We do appreciate it. I wanted to ask you, and we've got about 20, 25 minutes, unless you've got to be somewhere sooner. You just let me know.
Yep.
But I wanted to ask you what that transition was like with when Petrino took over and of course, talking about that 2010 season, how special that was for you.
It was difficult, him coming over. A lot of players on that team, you get accustomed to a certain way of going about things, a certain culture, certain expectations. And especially when it comes to recruiting aspect, a lot of these players, that's where I'm a fan of opening things up just in case something happens as far as some promises aren't fulfilled. But, Houston Nutt was my guy, and I loved him. I loved his brother, Danny, that whole coaching staff, Coach Shebest. I mean, you had the good relationships and good recruiting, and that's ultimately why I wanted to go to the University of Arkansas outside of it being in my own backyard, And so obviously a lot of people who are familiar with the Houston Nutt days know he was the ultimate players coach. I mean, primetime speech. I mean, I tell people all the time, if he really set me down, he could probably talk me into robbing a bank. It's just how he is. You know what I mean? He's just so motivating. You'll be like, man, I think it's a bad idea, but after listening to you, I think we can do this, And so he was that type of coach and that type of motivator, always had your back, always asking about this and that. And just one of the boys, the ultimate players coach. And so when that switch happened, man, you go from one extreme to the complete opposite. And we heard about Petrino before he even got there, about his escapades at Atlanta. His time at Louisville, and you hear about Brian Brom, quarterback, kind of saying he's the hardest coach I've ever played with, but I'm glad I played for him. And we're like, man, what does that mean? We learned real quick exactly what that meant. So that was a very tough transition for me because, he came in. I didn't take too kindly to him at first, and a lot of people don't even know I was trying to transfer. I was trying to go to Ole Miss and go with Houston Nutt. And talking to Houston and talking to Bobby about that whole process, and it wasn't like it is nowadays. You would have to sit out a season, maybe two if it's in conference. And even Houston was like, take your time. I know this is tough. This is just part of the business. I know we have these relationships and made all these promises. Give it spring ball or camp or whatever, and then, see how it goes. And then Petrino threw me the ball like every single play. I was like, okay, I can get down with this. You know what I mean? Okay. And I can deal with this hard-nosed guy all up in my face all the time to the point to where you're just, ready to just sometimes walk off that field, but you start seeing the results and it's just hard to deny. And not just with me, but with everyone on that football team. And it just really weeded out the people who wanted to be successful or not. There was no room for mediocrity at all in that program. And now that being said, we were blessed with a very special group of in-state talent when Petrino was there, and he had weapons to work with. I mean, with that type of offensive mind, and you got a group of guys that are going to stick together no matter what, and they just happen to be some of the best in the country at what they do. I mean, that's why that team was just set up for success. And so it was definitely a very interesting transition. I'm very glad I stuck around and I was a part of it. And me not seeing eye to eye with Petrino, I would say quickly changed. And it came from a matter of, I don't really like this guy, to I respect this guy, and it was a big life lesson, not just for me, but I think for everyone on that team about like change. Sometimes it's hard, but if you don't want to go, to Austin, Texas, and lose 52-7, then change is necessary.
Was that the same kind of attitude with the rest of the players? I mean, guys that were there from Houston Nutt in that era, was that the same kind of attitude? Like, I don't know about this guy, but hey, we're getting results?
The guys that were there now, like Jarius Wright, Joe Adams, Greg Childs, that whole little group, they didn't know no better. That's all they knew. They never got to experience Houston Nutt. They got recruited by Tim Horton in Houston and Danny Nutt, but as far as what college football is like, they had no clue. They was like, oh, this is normal. All the rest of us are like, this ain't right. You know what I mean? And so the guys that were there beforehand, it was tougher to transition. But like I said, Petrino had a very interesting way of becoming kind of this role of a head coach to where it almost forces you to just lean on your teammates and be like, man, we got to pull together. I got your back. You got my back. We know this is going to be hard. We know this is going to be tough. Let's just put in this work and keep it going, because there's no other way around it. And so he did a really good job of really making us a closer team. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but he really did.
It really was. That was his plan this whole time.
I get it now.
I'm going to be a huge I'm going to be in their faces nonstop, and they're going to band together.
That's right. And it happened. It did happen. It did.
Let me ask you too, did you get during your recruiting process, I know there's a whole backstory there, but Houston Nutt, did you get the there's only one Razorback speech from Houston?
Oh, you know that. He said, DJ, let me tell you this, man. DJ, come on now. Across the country, there's many places, there's a lot of lions, tigers, and bears. Well, I'm going to tell you one thing, there's only one Razorback. And then he would break that down to what that actually meant is, but beyond it just sounding good, and a little odd from Wizard of Oz, but he is true. I mean, the support around this state, I mean, every other place you go to, if you go to Oklahoma, the Oklahoma State, or is it Oklahoma? They even got Tulsa in the mix. You go to Texas, they got so many teams there. And beyond college teams, they got professional sports that, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 different professional sports in one state. And there's a fan base just split up across the whole thing. But here in Arkansas, it is it, and I don't mean to offend any Arkansas State fans, UCA fans,
Gotta be careful. They'll come after you.
But I hate to say it, but a lot of people from Jonesboro, a lot of people from Conway, a lot of people from Russellville are making their way up to Fayetteville on a Saturday.
That's absolutely true. Yeah. And those Arkansas State fans, they may be few, but boy, they get mouthy on Twitter.
Oh, man, they're on it, man. I work with a few of them, and you would just, it's just – you have to appreciate the loyalty. And I had a very, very bad take on our game day show last week. And I will say I am interested to see in 2025 when Arkansas plays Arkansas State at War Memorial. And I hated the fact that this game is even going to happen. Arkansas literally has everything to lose, nothing to gain. And it's a win-win for A-State. You know what I mean?
It really is, yeah.
And the whole aspect of saying, well, keep the money in the state. Let's not pay these other teams. Well, if A-State didn't have us on the schedule, they would go get paid by Miami or somebody. You know what I mean? So the money is all the same. But I hate to admit it, but we talked about rivalries for University of Arkansas. I know Arkansas fans hate Texas. Texas week is huge, Hate LSU. LSU week is huge. But as a player, we always used to just be like, man, they really don't care about us. We hate them. Texas they could care less about Arkansas on their schedule. LSU's the same way. There's only one school I could see out there where there could be a mutual, like, I can't stand those guys and they can't stand us. And it, unfortunately, is Arkansas State. But
yeah, I've said the same thing.
Yeah, that's the only thing that makes sense. And I guess we'll see with that turnout at War Memorial. That game's going to be nuts. You know what I mean? But
if it still happens at War Memorial, I kind of wonder if by then, if we're not completely backed out and playing that game in Fayetteville. Yeah. I don't know. I say that, but I've said that for like several years. I'm kind of surprised. Let me ask you. So wait, you're from Little Rock. How do you feel about that stadium debate? Do you feel like they need to keep it in Little Rock, keep the tradition?
I'm gonna keep it real. I'm extremely biased. You know what I mean? And so I take that into consideration. And when it was described to me what it was like playing in Little Rock, it was Houston Nutt describing it to me. So I'm over here like, oh, this place is amazing. You know what I mean? If anyone else would have described it to me, but it was spot on, man. There is nothing like, and I've been obviously to many games in Fayetteville. It's not necessarily the stadium; it's the people here in Little Rock. And when you pull up to that stadium, coming up Markham, and you see a sea, like you don't even see the golf course because there's so many people. I mean, hell, 80% of them can't even get into the stadium. They're there just for the party. And they line that bus, and you can hear them hitting that bus. I mean, it is a different kind of feeling. Like these people in Little Rock, it's a different breed.
It's rowdy.
And I would think anyone else in Northwest Arkansas would agree, but like them Little Rock folk a little different. And so as far as atmosphere and environment, and, you know, as players, and you may think it's cliche or not, it's just a different sense of pride, you know, when you see these guys. Because, you know, Northwest Arkansas is flooding in money, you know, and I know Little Rock has good money too, but for the most part, there's no comparison in the type of people up there and people here. And so when you roll up to these games and you see people that would never have the opportunity to get close to a Razorback football game, and it's just like, this is our home. It's just different. You know what I mean? Now, I don't know if I'm saying that because I'm from Little Rock. I get it. But at the same time, yes, for a home game, it would be nice not to travel 2.5 hours on a bus. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
disadvantages and advantages.
I've said for years, and I said this on my other show, Northwest Arkansas. I'm from here, born and raised in Fayetteville. I've worked at Sam's Club corporate, so I've been around that part of the state and those people. A lot of transplants. A lot of people from outside the state. And so I feel like the diehard fans, they're still here. They're probably in Farmington now. They're in Goshen. They're in Lowell, whatever. But I've always felt like outside of NWA are some of the most hardcore Razorback fans you will see anywhere. They're in Jonesboro. They're in Central Arkansas. They're down in Arkadelphia.
That's right, man.
I've lived here my entire life. I've gone to many games in Little Rock. I've tailgated both places. It's just a different environment.
Yeah, you know, Northwest Arkansas is bougie compared to Little Rock. You know, you go to Northwest Arkansas, they got some really dope tailgates. I'm telling you, I'm like, dang, this is fancy. You know, but I need a little bit of that just rugged old smoker with rust on it.
That's
people,
right.
You know, questionable people on that tailgate, but they're a good time. You know, I like that aspect too.
Yeah, nothing like it down there in Little Rock, man. I've never been on the golf course though. I've tailgated down there twice. I've never been on the golf course.
Man, it's a blast. I mean, and you talk about a place where color don't matter, status don't matter. The only thing that matters is that Razorback, and it's special, man. It is special.
Them Hogs. I will say I've been doing tailgate tours. I did a tailgate tour for the Cincinnati game. We're going to be out there Saturday, myself and our photographer, John.
Yeah.
I will say the tailgating scene has improved in Fayetteville.
It has.
It's still not Little Rock level, but it's getting better.
Well, you know, we travel. I travel to every game, and so I see tailgating to the max at every single place. And I wish our administration or whoever is over it would kind of relax on these tailgating rules and these tailgating spots that they're just charging out of the wazoo for. I mean, I've talked to a lot of donors who tailgated for years, and it said, one, they keep pushing us back. You know, I love to look at the parking lot in front of the stadium, and it used to just be packed with tailgates. That's not a thing anymore. They're kind of pushing it back, and they're charging more for it as well. People are just like, man, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. So I've been to places. You go to LSU, you go to Bama. It's just like a free for all, you know. And it's like they say, don't worry about this, that. We just want y'all as close as possible and to be crazy. And I mean, so we got some room for improvement when it comes to the tailgating scene. I just wish they would kind of lower the what's the word I'm looking for? The qualifications that people would need in order to tailgate, and just let them loose.
Let them loose. Let them do their thing. Get wild.
Yeah, that's what they're there for.
So let's talk about this matchup really quick this weekend. I don't know. I've caught a little bit of what they do. They've got this quarterback, DJ. I'm not gonna lie, man. This dude looks pretty good. Running an RPO, which is different for Petrino, and you would know that better than anybody. This dude can get it done. Shelley is his name. Where's number 3? Give me your thoughts on their offense and how it differs maybe from when you played there. You know, being a Mackey Award winner and being a part of a great offense in 2010. Can you tell us kind of the difference between what they do now and what they did then, and maybe talk about that quarterback a little bit?
Yeah, he's Petrino's just going to work with what he has, and he was very good about not asking people to do something who knew they were not going to be good at. He looks at his talent, he looks at his roster, and he says, this is best fit for this team. And he has the offensive genius to make it work within his scheme, because he's a lot of people thought we just aired it out when he was here. We were a very balanced offense.
You were, yeah.
We had great running backs. Now Davis, Dennis Johnson, Ronnie Wingo, Broderick Green, and they all got in that work. It's just sometimes it's flashier when you see, the Greg Childs, the Kobe Hamilton, Jarius Wright, Joe Adams. They're out there just doing their thing as well, but very balanced offense. And he's going to incorporate that in everything that he does, depending on the defensive scheme and, like I said, his personnel. But you talk about the RPO. The perfect example is when he went back to Louisville and had Lamar Jackson, and he says, this guy's a talent, and, Mallett doesn't have that ability at all. You know what I mean? So he figures out the personnel, what best fits them. And when I tell y'all, when we'd be in those meeting rooms and we'd be at practice, and, he would he would have sheets drawn up for the scout team. Where's the camera at? Yeah, sheets drawn up for the scout team. And it would, everything that they would do, and I'm over here in my mind like thinking, we'd run a play. If it wasn't right, we'd get back up on the ball. And he says, no, defender, stand right here. And I'm over here thinking, there's no telling where that defender is going to be in the game. Let's just go with the flow. And I'll be damned. I mean, every single play, like the first play against Ole Miss, he said this was going to happen. It's going to be a cross. This dude's going to drop this linebacker. That's the only person you got to be. And it was, as I'm running, I was like, this is exactly what happened in practice. I mean, there's no telling how much he watches film and picks up on tendencies. We had another play against Ole Miss another year about understanding the technique of a defensive lineman just based off what we do. He's teaching us their tendencies and their reaction based off what we do. So we would use it against them. And so when I look at Arkansas on the defensive side of the ball, especially with our linebackers, when it comes to bringing pressure, it seems like they have a responsibility to somewhat have the running back in somewhat of a man zone type scheme. And if the running back stays in a block, then they engage and rush. I see it all the time. And Petrino was very good at spotting that. And that's where a lot of my over the middle catches came from, was bait like I'm blocking, wait till they engage, and then I just slip out completely untouched. And so he sees all those tendencies. And, I do think we're going to win this football game, but I know Petrino is thinking, man, if I just had a guy that could maybe run faster than a 4.4, or maybe an offensive lineman that weighed over 270, I'd be very nervous about this game against our defense.
What do you make of their quarterback as far as just his place in this offense? You talk about Petrino kind of, working with the roster that he has. Does he impress you a lot in film? Do you kind of?
Oh, no doubt at all. You look at his ability to be balanced and decision making. And the thing about decision making, you have to give hats out to him about making the right read. Making a couple gutsy throws, being very competitive. Petrino really doesn't have much margin for error when it comes to his patience. You know what I mean? So
I've heard.
When you see quarterbacks in that type of offense, push the boundaries, it's a cool thing because he's very confident, because he knows if I do make a wrong read, I'm finna go get chewed out on the sideline, but just the ability to push those limits and take those risks says a lot about him. And once again, Petrino has him out there for a reason, but and I don't care if you're the best player in the world. If you do anything wrong, you're going to hear about it as soon as you step off the field.
Well, let's flip the switch a little bit. Let's talk about Arkansas's offense for just a second. Kendall, so far, they've played 2 games. Obviously, they're 2-0. The offense looks like they're clicking on another level, and that's without Treylon Burks, and that's without any receiver really standing out. How would you assess their games over these, or how would you assess their play over these last 2 games?
I mean, they just have the ability now to control, the tempo of the game, control the whole pace, and just because they're so dominant in running the football, they could run almost every play if they wanted to. Obviously, they know they're going to come across teams where there's going to be defensive linemen and linebackers. That's not possible. So I really do feel like they are really trying to establish being balanced as much as possible, because they know those teams are coming. If they wanted to, week 1 and this week, they could have ran every single time and been just fine. And so it's very cool to not only see that, but the development and the trust that Browse is now putting in KJ. They do try to dial up some big shots. It's just like the defense kind of has been doing fairly good about stopping some of those trick plays that you would see, or those plays where they set up for a bigger one. I saw one play last week where Trey, Knox, and another receiver, they were acting like they were blocking for the running back who was doing a little bubble route. usually DBs try to beat that block, and then Trey, and then they slipped and tried to go deep, but the DBs didn't bite. An old KJ Jefferson probably would have just let it fly and hope for the best. But now he's making the smart reads. He's understanding, okay, I don't have to score a touchdown every play. Then he would just dump it off to the back, pick up 4 yards. And so that just goes to show the growth in him, the communication between him and Browse, and them still trying to push the initiative. I'm still waiting for those big over-the-top bombs that we see every once in a while. We did see one, but it was dropped, but once we get that clicking, oh my gosh. I mean, the offense is going to be something special. Now, I still don't think we've been battle tested with the defensive front yet. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, because these guys are not real big. They're linebackers. KJ outweighs their linebackers. They don't have a 300-pound defensive lineman interior. They got a couple of guys that are close, think like 290, but these aren't SEC guys. And like Dudley mentioned earlier, these are transfers, though. Some of these guys did play for bigger schools, so that is something to keep in mind.
Yep. And I think that, too, goes into maybe the way they may go ahead and try to establish the run, get a nice little lead, but they know who's coming up, and they know they have to get this receiving core. They have to at least get one guy to be that playmaker. And, so I would expect to see quite a bit of that in the attempt of establishing a threat, when it comes to the deep ball.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Trey Knox a minute ago, and then someone in chat also had a really good question. Austin wants to know, if I get it to pull up here, how has he liked Trey Knox transitioning to tight end? So his progress, we know he moved from wide receiver last year to tight end, which, by the way, if I heard that right, he actually went to the staff and volunteered to play tight end. I don't know if I heard that wrong or not.
I didn't know that.
I think no, that's I might have read that somewhere. Hopefully it wasn't on a message board, but I'm pretty sure I've heard that from a legit
source.
I
wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I've got to talk to Trey a few times, and just his personality, man, and his attitude obviously jumps off the sheet when it looks like, man, this guy just keeps grinding, waiting for his opportunity. He comes in just highly touted. His freshman year was Trey Knox this, Trey Knox that. Burpston just exploded, and he kind of disappeared. Some people would say a disappointment, and so to weather that storm and then come out and do what he's doing now and putting on the weight that he put on. I mean, it is when he lines up in the slot, I almost forget he did play receiver because he's fast. He knows how to run routes as a college receiver would, because he is one still. But I really look at him in the interior line. And I've been so impressed with his willingness to get in there and block and be physical. It's almost like he's more comfortable blocking down there than he is out in space trying to block like a DB in a slot. And so that's very special to see. And his second touchdown of the year when he caught it, ran from about 30 yards out, I was just like, whoo.
He looked fast.
Like that. He's fast now. They almost forgot how fast he is. So
he was a high 4.4 guy out of high school, if I remember right.
He still got some zoom in there. That was fun to see.
For sure. I don't want to put you on the spot with this, but do you see him possibly as a guy that could play at the next level? Do you think
he has the frame and the size? If not drafted, he'll be put on a team. I mean, he's just too physically gifted. You know what I mean? And they'll figure it out there. You know what I mean? If it's a free agent thing, it really ain't costing him much. But I don't know if you've stood next to him lately. I forgot how big he was. I was like, that looks like an NFL tight end, So, and for him the more comfortable he gets with that position. Now the NFL, it's a different league now. They got some real dogs over there. All right. So, but that being said, what they're doing with tight ends now at that level, he fits the skill set.
It really does.
And so I'd be very interested to see how that works out. I kind of wanted them to put him in more. We've been so effective in the red zone, but if we ever did struggle, it'd be nice to have a package where you split him outside 1-on-1. And if they go man to man, most likely they're going to have a linebacker covering him, and that should be an easy win every single time because of his skill set from his receiver days.
Well, he had that reputation coming in his freshman years. They weren't 50-50 jump balls for him. It was like 80-20 jump ball. He has that ability in the catch radius to come down with just about anything that you want to throw at him. And we know how accurate KJ can be in those tight situations. Question. This is a good one. This is from where'd it go? Here we go. Do you think you would enjoy playing in this Browse offense with KJ?
I mean, I would probably say no.
Okay.
I would say no, just based off of I loved our offense and what we had going on when Petrino was there. There's just so many moving parts when it comes to Browse, even before the snap.
Yeah.
And like the tempo was so fast, and which is not a bad thing. It's just, I think so much of that offense is based off of, I would say Brow's decision of what he wants. I think KJ makes a few decisions here or there when it comes to hand it off or keep it. But passing wise, for the most part, you see where he wants to go. I really like the freedom we had on offense of going up to the line of scrimmage. Petrino would call a play, and Mallett had the freedom to switch it at any time that he wanted. And a lot of it was from input from his receivers. If we saw a front that we've seen before, we understand what blitz is going to come. We would always have a signal or something we would yell out to Mallett to inform him of that, and then he could switch the play. And so, I mean, there was just so many different assets and facets to that offense that we had an amount of trust to make it happen. There was only one player we couldn't trust too much, was Greg Childs. He couldn't read a defense if his life depended on it. But Greg Childs just knew one thing. He said, "I'm open, throw it deep," and it worked about half the time. But
you ain't gonna do him like that. You ain't gonna do him like that.
It's the truth. We'd be like, "Greg, was it man or cover two?" He said, "I don't know. I'm open. Just throw the ball."
Yeah,
I love
good at it. There's no doubt he could.
But he was. People don't understand when I say one of the most talented players I've ever played with was a player who just got. We'd still be talking about him today. I mean, he was a freak of nature.
Yeah.
And he could catch anything. He ran a 4.3 40. He could power clean over 360 pounds. And not only that, he was a bully. He was a physical receiver. He loved blocking. He loved all that stuff. He was a bully out there. And so, man, I hate what happened with his knee injuries and stuff. But, man, that guy was one of the most talented players I've ever been around.
Are you still? Last question. I'll let you get out of here. Are you still pretty tight with those guys? With those guys that you play?
Oh yeah, we all chop it up. We all have a good time. I do keep in touch with a lot of my former players and teammates, and I'm actually going to see one this weekend, and I'm very curious to talk to him. Tremaine Thomas, he's the defensive back coach for Bobby Petrino at Missouri State. So
that's right. Yeah.
And it's so fascinating because that guy, I don't think I've ever heard him talk at Arkansas. He was so quiet. Now, he was a headhunter out there, and he was a ball hog, had so many interceptions. But I'd be very curious to be like, so what is it like being on the other end? Because as much as Petrino chewed us out as players, he was way worse on the coaching staff. So it'd be a good conversation for us to have.
You could hear him yelling at his players. I remember going to a spring game, I think it was 2009, or yelling at his staff.
Oh,
he just turned around, and I've never – and I remember Reggie Herring, when he's defensive coordinator for Houston Nutt. I remember the stuff that he said to those guys. I remember the whole –
Reggie Herring had some of the most – I mean, we could probably talk about it off camera. We can't say the stuff he said, but he said some stuff that has stuck with me and will for life. I'm like, did he just say that about me? I mean, it's unreal, the stuff. His one-liners, I mean, he had to have been writing them down. Somebody just didn't think of that. It was insane.
Yeah, it seemed scripted because I heard some of it, and I heard Bobby, and the stuff getting after Ryan and all you guys on offense. I remember thinking, oh my God, I don't know if I'd want to play for this guy.
It's funny, as much as we hated it then, us looking back at it now, those are the moments we laugh most about. Like, those are the ones we miss the most. It's crazy how that works. We can sit back and talk about it all day.
Well, man, this has been fun. Thank you so much for taking a little time out of your morning to sit and chat with us. It was an absolute blast to have you on, man.
Hey, man, it was a fun one, and I'm very excited about this weekend. I guess I'll see you up there in the box this week.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be down on the field for a little bit, taking it all in, and then I'll be up in the box. So,
all right, there goes my.
That's a big dog. That sounds like a.
I got my dog out there. People walking up to the windows. We got problems.
All right, man. We'll let you go, and we'll have to have you on again, DJ.
No problem, man. Anytime. Just let me know.